Hello everyone, and welcome to my Eve Frontier review at the first glance. Eve Frontier has entered early alpha in December of 2024 and can be played through the Founders Access. But such access came with an NDA. Well, now the NDA has finally been lifted, and we can talk about what exactly is Eve Frontier. So when I was streaming on the very first day of public access, the most common questions I was asked by lurking viewers was, is this Eve 2? Or why is TCP making an Eve clone? Well, let's address that right now. Is it an Eve Online 2? It is and it isn't. It is another Eve game that is brand new, it is made by the same developer, but it's also very different than the old Eve Online, which I happen to have played for 17 years until recently. While the two games share many things in common, the gameplay seems very different, as Eve Frontier is a lot more focused on survival with elements of horror. It is still in very early alpha, so it's hard to say how does it compare to the 21-year-old Eve, but we will explore it here. So first thing you notice is that the game really is in its infancy. For example, the character creation has no customization whatsoever, which I'm sure will be added in the future. Character sheet has no reputation or standing page, but when you do kill NPCs, you get a notification that your standing has been changed to one or more factions, which to me is stating that the standing page is coming in the future, it's planned, it's just not in the game yet. So, well, once you finish creating a character and choose which starting cluster you want to start at, you appear in your shuttle at a random spot where you can loot some basic items from the nearby wrecks. Now, ship classes seem to be one up from EVE Online, as ships like Shuttle can actually fit mining lasers and basic weapons. They have mid and low slots, while there are multiple types of corvettes and they seem to have different roles too, like one is an exploration corvette and another one is a combat corvette. So the impression that I got was that, Shuttle here is the corvette in old EVE and corvette is actually a frigate. One major difference is that while in EVE Online you don't get to build your own citadel or structure for a while, or in some player cases never, and you operate out of the NPC or other player structures, EVE Frontier throws you straight into building your first base, even as part of the tutorial. The game has heavier emphasis on survival, where you have to manage things like ship's fuel, sometimes live out of temporary anchorable modules for a long time, and if you run out of fuel with no friends in sight to deliver it to you, self-destruct may be the only option. Now, there's currently an issue with carbon ore in the game, which is needed to make fuel. It's essential ore, without it you cannot make fuel and you cannot survive. So the carbon ore seem to be missing from starter zones. I think it's due to players spawning in those zones and just mining it out clean. However, I did hear CCP acknowledge it and promise a fix as soon as possible, so that should be addressed soon. Now, several other notable differences is there is no descan, for example, and people do not appear in local chat unless they say something, even in starting zones. Similar to wormhole space in old EVE. So finding players will likely be a lot harder, but it will also be easier to avoid players, depending on what you're looking for. Mining lasers can be used as a weapon in EVE Frontier. A very weak weapon, but nonetheless a weapon capable of swatting off a couple of rogue drones in the starting zone. Oh, I almost forgot the big one. So in EVE Frontier, it seems like every ship is capable of what old EVE players would know as sino jumping from system to system, but without even having someone to light up a sino in another system. In other words, even Corvette, fitted with the right engine and not lacking fuel, can jump to any system in the range of its jump engine. The UI and early crafting can certainly use improvement. For example, managing several anchorable modules is a pain, as you cannot toggle between them or even between different jobs. So for example, if you have loaded materials into a printer or an assembly array, as old EVE players would know it, you cannot even look at any other jobs or different blueprints in the same assembly unit. You have to remove the loaded materials into your ship's cargo just to check how much of different material you would need for a different job. And if you happen to not have room in your cargo, like it does happen a lot when you manufacture your starting items, you have to exit the printer, interact with the storage, unload your cargo into storage, exit storage, enter printer, unload loaded materials into your cargo, and all that just to look at a different job or blueprint or to see how much of different materials you would require for, to make something else. But again, nothing that cannot be fixed in the near future. These are just small but annoying things. Now, before we conclude, I wanted to ask you all for a small favor. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my 500 sub goal, as I am trying to become a YouTube partner. I have met all my other goals and all my other requirements, except the subscribers. I would really appreciate it if you could. But anyway, back to Eve. So how would I rate the game so far? Well, I may be a little biased here, as I am a veteran Eve player, but I would certainly recommend trying out Eve Frontier and approaching it with an open mind. It is not a finished product, and far from it, but from what I have seen and read, it has the potential to be something great, perhaps the next generation of space MMO. It also offers a fresh start without having to compete against players with 100 million skill points in old Eve. There are actually currently no skill points of any kind in Eve Frontier, yet anyway. As of right now, anyone seems to be able to fly any ship and use any modules as long as they can get their hands on them. Again, not to say this is how it's always going to be, but currently there are no skill points. Now, in this current state, knowing where the game is in its development, I would give it a solid 8. But again, I am likely biased as I have a sweet spot for Eve. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a different opinion. I always appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciate you. Thank you for watching.